Nicole is here today because, and I'll do an intro before this, but because I've had some people reach out to me and say, hey, can you get somebody that has like some kids that is a newer or newish to meditation and just talk with them on here. And Nicole and I took meditation teacher training together through Davidji and Breathe. And we were in the same group. They separate you in groups virtually because of COVID. Otherwise we would have probably connected so much more, but we still connected amazingly in our group virtually. And so I asked her to be on, and after some convincing, well, it's not a regular thing. You're not constantly on podcasts like a lot of my guests. So I really appreciate you being here, Nicole. Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody in the beginning to start us off and get us on the right foot. When you wake up in the morning today, in your life today, what makes you super stoked for the day, makes your heart just sing out loud and, be happy for the day?
Yes. I should have known that was coming. I'm a listener, my friend. What makes me sing? Honestly, and I'm not just saying it because this podcast is about mindfulness and because we know each other through meditation, but honestly, these days, knowing that I'm going to get up and meditate makes my heart sing, because I know it's going to be an awesome day if I start out with that. And I know this is so trite, but my son, I got 2 dogs, the sun sometimes shines in Rochester, and it's going to be a good day. That's it.
Yeah. I love that. That's, yeah. And how old's your son?
11
years old. And so what is, you said getting up and meditate, and I talk about it all the time on the podcast. It is the thing I look forward to every morning. How long ago did you start meditating?
I didn't even have a name for it before, but I was a crisis meditator. I learned that term in our class. And I was a really, really, really random crisis meditator. And I would say I regularly started in January. And I really, really, really started on February 17th, the day I signed up for the meditation teacher training. Shit got real. That's all I can say.
That's funny. Well, you were a late newcomer. You were a late because I was in October or something the year before. Yeah. They signed up a lot of people early.
Yeah, I needed a little help.
So what Nicole means by crisis meditating, by the way, I don't know if we've used that term yet, is when you feel like you need it, right? So something happens, okay, I need to sit down for 5 minutes, and then that's it, right? You do it, or you might do it 2 days in a row and then just not do it, instead of daily meditating, which is kind of like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym once a month, you're not going to see any results at all. If you go every day or 3, 4, 5 days a week, you'll see results. And it's the same thing with working our mind. So let's talk about Nicole before meditation. And again, it was 6-7 months. I mean, it's not and I know this is part of your life now, right?
Absolutely.
So what was Nicole like before, and why did you decide, just give us, tell us your story. Sure. Why did you decide to all of a sudden sign up for this course, start meditating more, look more into mindfulness stuff? What was it about?
I was always interested in mindfulness stuff. Health and wellness has always been, it's funny how life takes detours and you find your way back. Many, many years ago, I got my master's in health education, and I did corporate health and wellness, and I loved it. And then I kind of got recruited away, and I ended up doing corporate health and wellness corporate communications for 20 years. And so I got away. My profession was no longer really my passion. And then I noticed, I think as you age, I'm going to say the word age, you just get more aware. And I noticed my mom's energy first. Like my mom could be standing still in a room and it was just like you could see the energy swirl around her. And I was like, I think I feel that same way. I just feel like not grounded. And so then, I'll get right into it. My husband suddenly passed away 7 years ago. And it never became more obvious. The old saying, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Right.
And I frankly became a little bit paranoid about it, because I was now a single mom of a 4-year-old son. But it was more mindfulness at the time. It was meditation. It was, I got to heal through this. And so it was kind of dabbling in it. And I kind of dabbled in it, but I'm like, if I haven't studied it, I can't do it. I'm not going to be doing it right. So then exactly a year ago, I was working. And I was always mindful after my husband passed away that when I went back to work, I may have to leave at any time. My office was really, really good to me and my son. I came back 30 hours a week. I told them I couldn't travel. They were absolutely fantastic about it. And I'm like, as long as I could keep this good gig going, I'm going to do it. And last year, it was off the rails. Work was just absolutely off the rails. I was working until midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every day. My son I'd make him a meal and he'd be sitting at the kitchen island by himself with an iPad and I'd be working. And I'm like, no. And I realized it had been 3 weeks of that and it wasn't gonna change. And I completely was not myself on a conference call. I didn't start screaming, but I was just not myself. And as soon as I heard my voice, I'm like, that is not me. And I called my boss to vent and she revealed she was leaving. And I was like, I've never felt anything like it in my entire life. Every cell in my body just relaxed. And I immediately started crying tears of joy for her, for me. I'm like, I am leaving. And I was on my way to pick up my son from camp. And I literally had my boss in my ear and I'm picking him up and I'm like, buddy, I'm leaving work. And we came home and we had a dance party. And I had some diligence to do before I could give some notice. And I did some research, made sure it was okay. And a week later, I gave my notice and I was out. And I'm like, okay. Then after that, I was like, I gave my notice, but I gave 2 months notice just to get them through some stuff. And I'm like, what am I going to do when I leave? And I'm like, meditation. And this is so me. I'm like, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to meditate every day. And I was going to type A the shit out of that. Right?
I know type A. I get it. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to meditate every day. And I had a session with an Akashic record reader. And she goes, you can meditate every day. You don't have to. And it was funny. So then I left at the end of October and I was like, yeah, right. I'm not going to type A my life anymore. I'm trying not to type A my life anymore. So, and I started in January. So we'll say that.
Wow. There's a lot to that story. First off, and I've said it before, I'm sorry about your husband passing.
Thank you.
You were a single mom. You've been single mom in it then, right? Yep. What was, you mentioned healing. Okay. There's a few things I want to talk about if I can remember them. You mentioned, I want to heal.
Yeah. Because I was going to type A that too.
Did you type A? Did you heal? Do you think that, I'm curious. Or what is healing? What's the definition of it to you? You know, like what?
That's $1 million question, right? I mean, it's been And, you know, I'm so cognizant, and I think you even said this on one of our chit chats, that, you know, I used to be that person a long time ago, way before my husband, that when this is over, then I'm free, you know, and you're living your life for when this is done, then. And I learned that is just not possible. That is no way you're not living if you're that way. So I think it's a good question. What was the question again? Say it one more time.
I guess the you know, you were mentioning, you know, I need to heal from this right away.
Right.
So what does it mean to you, if you think, and you might not even have thought about this before, so I'm putting you on the spot with this question, right? So it's like, what does it mean to heal from a loss like that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners have gone through.
I mean, you know, at first it was a big, gaping, open, weeping wound. And I was just like, that's just going to have to sit there, you know, and I'm going to work at it. I mean, have I gone to a therapist? Absolutely. Do I practice yoga? Absolutely. Do I now practice meditation? Absolutely. I think it's just not avoiding it. I would say that, just not avoiding it and being with it, whatever it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think every day, it was subconscious at first. Every day after my husband passed away, I had a line of essential oils in my bathroom, and it was like transformation, joy, surrender, whatever. And every day after I got out of the shower, I really kind of looked at those oils and I thought, what kind of mood am I in right now? And what kind of mood do I want to be in today? Like most of the time, I'm a firm believer in just be what it is. Don't try to fake it. But there are times when you just, you know, you're like, yeah, I kind of feel crappy, but I really do want to pick it up. And there's a time and a place to kind of fake it to make it, which normally isn't my motto, but I think it's important to surrender when you want to surrender and to pick yourself up and try to carry on sometimes. And thank God for my son. I mean, he was my true north. It was just, let's put a smile on that face.
You guys are like BFFs now, I bet.
I try to be really cognizant of that. I think our relationship is it's probably pretty different than most parents, I will say that. But, you know, I tell him too, because I was really cognizant afterwards. I'm like, that's not your job. I'm the parent. That's my job. Yeah. I got it. And I think it's interesting, like most 4-year-olds don't say to their mother, Mommy, will you keep me safe? And you're like, yeah, that's my number one job. That's my number one job. Number one, and I tell them this not often, but when needed, my job is to keep them safe, to keep them healthy, and to keep them happy. And it's in that order. It's in that order.
Yeah, that's powerful.
We try.
As best we can, right?
Right, as best we can, right? Well, my motto too is he's going to go to therapy for something his mother did, because it's always the mother's fault. So my other motto is I might as well make it really good. If he's going to therapy, it's going to be good. So
I remember you. That's good. That's good. Write that one down, everybody listening. Write that one down. Yeah. So, you know, you said something interesting that actually came up talking to somebody. I won't say the context of who it was and what it came up, but the individual had a lot of trauma in their life, right? And rapes and stuff like that. So she went to each place that this stuff happened and took a rock from each place that it happened. Apparently there was rocks in the areas. And she was getting her front step redone, like her front stone step. And she had those stones. She first off, she sat with them for a while at her desk at work, trying to decide what she wants to do. Does she want to get rid of them? Does she want to throw them in the lake? She decided to incorporate it throughout her stonework in her front yard. And the reason is what you said, is because it's always that, like, this is always going to be a part of her or you. As a human being, it's impossible. You can't just like get rid of it and never think about it and never pretend like these things didn't happen, right? So whether it's you losing a husband or this trauma she went through, she was saying that it'll always be a part of her. So why not, incorporate it and give her memory of how she's healed from it and how she's moved on with her life from that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really it was something I never would think about, right? I would never.
That's profound.
Yeah. So it reminded her what she overcame because, and
yeah.
So, it's cool.
Incredible. Healing is a tricky thing though. You can't, and it's funny, I tried to type A it. And then, I'm like, gotta go to the therapist, gotta meditate, gotta do yoga. I'm not gonna lie, joined a really nice fitness club and
do some faking it till you make it.
Well, and working out and it felt really good. I mean, at least, that part of it felt really good. And then life just has a way. Like, I feel every couple of years, life throws me another curveball. And when I thought, it's funny because my mom passed away 2.5 years before my husband passed. And I remember driving and thinking, all right, I feel like I got my feet back on the ground. I feel like I got my feet back on the ground. And then Pete passed away. And then it was like 2.5 years after Pete, I felt like, I remember driving again thinking, I feel like I'm getting my feet back on the ground. I feel like I'm getting my sense of humor back. I'm laughing more. And then we found out my dad had ALS, which was my worst fear, like, in life. I mean, not him getting ALS, just anybody having to deal with ALS. And then it was, all right, so let's deal with that head on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this. So 6 months of meditating, what kind of things have come up, or what have you felt that you didn't prior? I'm curious.
Yeah.
What kind of...
Definitely. I feel I'm going to use the word profound again, profound difference, which isn't usually in my language. And I'm getting a bit of a test of it right now, which is good, in a sick, twisted way. I would say the first test of it, I started meditating definitely twice a day, really working at the twice a day in mid-February and having a really tough time. I mean, it was just really uncomfortable, I'll say that. And then the day the first COVID person was diagnosed, I'm just more aware of everything now, and I felt my adrenaline spike. And I went out and I did the panic shopping. I'm like, no, I can't meditate. I gotta go do the panic shopping. And I went out and did the panic shopping, and then I came back and I meditated, and I just felt it, like, just drop. And that was fascinating. And then the other fascinating one, we just found out a couple of weeks ago, that my dog, my sweet, amazing dog, has cancer. And at first I felt myself go right back up to when we found out my mom had cancer and my dad had ALS, and I felt my adrenaline just skyrocket, and I went immediately back to that place. And then the next morning, because it was at 9:00 at night, the next morning I meditated and I just calmed right down and I put it right in perspective. And I said, no, it's not like I don't have any feelings about it, but she's a 10-year-old Newfoundland. This is the natural order of things. So it's good I definitely am way more aware. And then I even had another test of it just last week. And I got a phone call about somebody else's health. And I immediately, I didn't even get the adrenaline spike. I just immediately, I just took a deep breath and I was like, all right, What do we have to do? What do I need to do? What needs to be done? And just kind of ticked it off more logically and more from the heart than I would say I ever have. And more mindfully for sure, without the huge adrenaline boost and spike. And in the past, I will say this, when I've gotten the adrenaline boost or spike in that case, in that fight or flight case, I get dizzy for 3 months after. So I feel it. Yeah.
So what is it like, not how does it feel, I guess, to be able to manage that emotional roller coaster like that now? You know what I mean? Like, how does that feel?
Refreshing.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't want to get in the details of what's in the midst of going on right now, but it's something that the prior Nicole obsessed about many years ago. I obsessed about this scenario, and it consumed, I will admit, I spent hours like consuming, not getting to sleep at night, taking hours to get to sleep at night. And now, how do I say this? It's likely here. I mean, I'm not one to, I'm kind of superstitious when it comes to people's health and things like that, and well-being, but it's falling on my shoulders, and I'm just taking it one step at a time, one step at a time. That's it. And I'm way more mindful about it, and going through it completely consciously without the judgment on my part, or judging myself or judging anybody else, which is beyond refreshing, without being frustrated, without being angry, and just kind of saying, all right, this is what we need to do. So frankly, I was running around all morning dealing with it. So, and
you would never know, talking to you now, when I listen to that, Nicole, I hear, like, when I listen to that, it's just, it reminds me that, and it's been said in this podcast times, is, we don't have to go into that panic state to handle situations that are happening in our life. We don't have to lose hours of sleep day in and day out over something. It doesn't have to be part of the protocol. Right. No. And you could still, if not handle it, manage it, take care of it better by being rested, by being more mindful, by being more aware. Right. And in control, I guess, which is really cool to hear. It's really cool.
It's yeah. And if you knew Nicole Marie 2 years ago, you'd be like, oh, that ain't possible.
Thank God I don't know her. Thank goodness I don't know Nicole.
He's not even pulling out the middle name on that one. If you knew that crazy lady.
I would have had you blocked in my phone. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, and I think a lot of it too, what's funny? Okay, so I'm going to go to a big life lesson in all this.
Ooh, I like it.
My mom had cancer for a year, and it was really, I watched her, it's never pretty. We'll say that, right? And my dad had ALS for 2 years, and he passed away a year and a half ago. And my dad, he started with a ventilator. It started because he couldn't breathe. So I watched that man struggle to breathe every day and get worse and worse over 2 years. And those two, the day they were diagnosed with god-awful terminal illnesses, their faith only it went through the roof. It just, like, when other people or maybe it's a stereotype or whatever it is that you would think they'd be like, why me? My parents never, ever, ever asked it. My sister said this one time. She goes, there's a lot of living and dying. And my parents both knew exactly what was going on. And they just doubled down on their faith. They were so, amazing to spend time with. We couldn't wait to spend time with them. And my parents both lived in an hour and a half from here. And I went in all the time. I dragged my poor kid to that city, and we'd stay and we'd spend a week. Actually, towards the end of my dad's life, we were able to spend 3 weeks. And it's just, it was a real gift to be able to spend that time with my parents and watch them just cope. And my dad said to me at the very end, my dad, I knew he wasn't in a good place, but I didn't think anything was imminent. And he called me, and he was very different. He was panicky, and he was never, ever, ever like that. And it was clear to him, I realized pretty quickly, it was clear to him, he thought he was dying. And I was like, okay, I got to meet him where he is. And I don't think he's dying, but it's not, this is where he thinks he is, and that's where I need to be with him. Mm-hmm. And he just kept saying, Nikki, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. And I said, Dad, why? And he goes, because I'm not there for you. I'm not going to be there for you. And I said, Dad, you were. You showed me. And he goes, it just breaks my heart because me, of all people, having lost my husband, he's like, you're going to be by yourself again. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to be by myself. I said, you taught me every day how to live by your example, every day. And it's interesting because, and I even wrote this as part of his eulogy, here I am seeking to be calm and to be present. And I'm doing yoga and I'm dabbling in meditation and I'm trying to work out and I've got a trainer and I'm like actively working the shit out of it. And he's just living it every day. And he couldn't move. He didn't leave his house for the last year. It was incredible to watch. Both my parents were the same in that regard. It was really a sacred gift to spend that time with them. And they taught us how to live and, frankly, how to die. Is it depressing?
No. First off, thank you for being like so vulnerable and sharing that. Second, thank you for getting me in my feels. I had a few, like, my eyes started to, because I'm a father of a daughter, so I'm just picturing that. And I'm, that I wouldn't know what that's like because I have both my parents still, which, thank God for.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. And it just makes me think, and I have been, but it makes me make sure I appreciate the time and conversations a lot more with them than I ever have. Especially as they get older.
And it's a gift. We are so blessed. And it's funny because I was in my mid-30s and I thought, geez, I am so naive. I haven't had to deal with any tragedy.
That's how I think right now.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. And it's a beautiful thing. And then my mom had cancer and honestly, and it's brought my family so much closer together. It's such, it is what it is. I'm not one of these people that says, God has a plan. I don't know where this is in the plan, but I think God gives you, to me, faith. I thank God my parents brought me up active in religion. I don't practice the religion that I was brought up in. I went for a lighter version of it. But I do think it's, for me and for my husband, it was really important to get married in a church and to have all the help we can get. And we wanted to raise our son with a strong faith as well. And I forgot what I was going to say.
No, you're good. What about, Nicole, this was like, what you're sharing is amazing. And there's so much value to be taken from that. What what do you, right before we started this conversation, I'll take a little shift here. What, like MBSR, you said you were diving deep into possibly learning even, and by the way, I bring this up because like once I know how it is, once you see what something does for you in your life, you just want to know more about it and you want to share it and learn more, right? And that's what you're doing right now. You want to, what are you doing? We didn't talk about it too much. So what's going on?
Yeah, no, I just was looking at it. It was funny. I got something pop up in my feed about a different kind of meditation teacher training. And I thought, oh, well, I never thought about kind of doing, because we did the Davidji training and we went down the path of Vedic or Vedanta or whatever we want to call it. And it was fascinating. Yeah. And I think you and I have had this conversation where you just want to dive in. I just want to study it so much more. I want to learn more. I want to take it in. But the cool thing is I've been practicing and it's so delicious. I mean, it's so integral to my everyday that I just want to learn more. And I've been asked to teach to some young professionals in the area. And I've been asked to teach at an all-girls school. So I'm really excited to do that. And I thought it would be neat to really learn more about kind of what we learned. But then I got just kind of Googling and thinking, what other meditation teacher trainings are out there? Are there different styles that would kind of complement it? And so I was just looking at MBSR that's run through University of Massachusetts and in coordination with Brown University. And I was thinking about it. I mean, it's a heck of a certification and it takes quite a while, but, and there's one person in Rochester that's certified, which looks like maybe more. What do I
know? Do you remember the person's name?
She's up in Webster. I don't remember her name off the top of my head.
I think she had I believe she owned Balance Yoga.
I think so.
Yeah, Erica something. Yeah, she is, and then there's I know a couple of people going through it right now too, going through the course. Yeah, but there's not that many that I know of. It's a pretty intense course. Erin, I had a podcast guest on here that teaches MBSR, so she's actually teaches it, and we talked about it a lot. So yeah, it's a really, I mean, to me, what I'm learning is like meditation, and we can certify ourselves to death with it. There was one, Nicole, I was looking for. Look, I believe personally, like for anything, I think it's cool to get certified. I think it's cool to have that justification, because for me, like, I didn't feel like I could teach people unless I had that, right? Mm-hmm. It just, and then it's just about doing it. And then once you do it and you continue to do it, that's when you really learn. That's when you become, the expert that you want to be, or the helper that you want to be. And just that's what anything, just doing it and teaching it and doing it. But I was looking at same thing. I did the same thing you did. And I saw this certification from, I think it was Deepak or somebody, but the requirements were like 2 silent retreats, at least 7 days long. Did you come across this one?
MBSR.
Oh, it was MBSR? You have to, they put you through that, right?
Well, you have to do 2 of them.
Okay. So in order to do this specific certification, you had to have already done.
Oh, that could be the second or third.
It was crazy. I was like, holy cow. And and then you had to have taught like 1,000 hours. Wow. So there's like all these different levels you can get certified for. But I'd love to, if you do end up doing that, how serious are you about taking that?
I just found it yesterday. I'm not going too far, brother. But it is true. I mean, you can, and I'm good at studying things, right? I love to study them. I don't know. It's a problem. It's a problem.
I mean, it's an enjoyment of yours. I know I saw your notes you put together for our team. Nicole put together structured notes for all of us to follow from the training. It was a really beautiful thing. But yeah, so I get it.
love to study, my friend. But it's good. I think that the great thing about, because I went into the meditation teacher training thinking, oh, I'm not going to teach for like, 3, 4, 5 years. And then I'm out. I'm not even out for 1 week. And somebody's like, now what was that you did? And I'm like, oh yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, will you teach that to these young professionals? Yeah, love to.
Our plan isn't always the universe's plan, right? Is that right?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. So yeah, so it's good.
That's awesome.
Good. We'll see where it goes.
Well, you know what? Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Nicole, before you were texting me, you said, I have some talking points to talk on. So again, this is the Nicole that we love. And that is real deal. What was one of your talking points that you came up with?
Oh dear, what were they? You know what? After you said that, I'm like, all right, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't obsess. Because he emailed me and he goes, this is a fun conversation. I was like, okay, it's a fun conversation. And then it probably was good. I was distracted all day with this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I literally had to run around, and I literally got home 15 minutes before this started. I'm like, cool. I'm not going to look. Not going to do the typical Nicole thing. Not doing it.
That's so funny.
I'm trying to think of, you know what? One of my favorite sayings is, one of them was, tragedy plus time equals comedy. And just keep your sense of humor through everything. Everything.
Where did you make that up, or is that something that
somebody really important and smart, I'm sure, made that up, but my boss always used to say it. And so I'm going to credit my old boss, but I think it might've been somebody bigger than that.
Okay. Can we take a 2-second time out to see who said this?
Yes, please do.
So doesn't.
Did you Google it?
Yeah, I Googled it, and it's like, it doesn't. Humor is okay. So Mark Twain said humor is tragedy plus time.
Oh, that makes sense. We'll give him credit.
So that's what Mark Twain said, which, Mark Twain.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Has some quotes. So yeah, so it sounds like somebody might have changed his quote a little bit to make more sense. Humor is tragedy plus time. That's interesting. So like, it's hard for me to grasp a quote like that because I haven't had much tragedy in my life, really. So
that is good. Don't be apologetic about that whatsoever. No, we laughed. It sounds sick and twisted, but I'm trying to think of what we laughed. Not on the day my husband passed away, but now we laugh about stuff that happened on that day. Even when my dad was in the middle of ALS, this story, I'll share this one story because it's the sick and twisted family humor. My dad was obsessed with the birds at his house. He had 5 bird feeders at his house, and he always was making nurses go out there. He was making family go out there. I was there for a long weekend, and he was obsessing about something with a bird feeder. And I'm like, Dad, I love you. The bird feeder store is on the other side of town. I'm going to be there in 2 days. I will get it in 2 days. You're going to have to wait 2 days. He starts dialing the phone and starts calling people. And normally I would just start yelling at him. What are you doing? And just let it go. You can't wait 48 hours. And so I walked in the house and I called my brother. And because my dad was on the porch, I'm like, he's calling. And he had 3 people running to 3 different stores for this part of the bird feeder because he couldn't wait 48 hours. So 48 hours goes by and I go and they don't have it. And he starts dialing everybody. And my uncle comes over, who's his identical twin, with something that he thinks is going to fix bird feeder number 5. And he makes him go out there, and it's a hot day. It's like 90 plus degrees. And he makes him go out there for the 4th time. And adjust the thing. And finally, I just look at my dad and I'm like, I actually did have the wherewithal to think, is this appropriate? But I'm going for it anyway. And I go, Dad, you don't have to worry about passing away of ALS. You are going to pass away of blunt force trauma to the head due to a bird feeder. And everybody was silent. And I looked at the nurse, just like stopped, and she just gasped. Like you could feel the oxygen leave the whole house. And my uncle's like looking around, and my dad just burst out laughing, and we couldn't stop laughing. So to this day, things like that, you gotta acknowledge the pink elephant in the room. I mean, I don't know, that's me. Acknowledge it, laugh at it, be the first to laugh at your own idiosyncrasies.
I think there's something to be said about that. Absolutely.
I mean, it's like Kevin Hart is vertically challenged, right? He's the first one to acknowledge, hey, I'm short.
Yeah, he uses that in his bits all the time. Yeah, that makes
right. I mean,
well, I think it was you that said something in one of our calls. You were like, oh, thanks, Pete. Right? Pete was your husband, right?
That's my husband.
Yeah. Just for people listening. Hey, thanks, Pete. Now I'm only the one left to screw up our son. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Or something like that.
I did. On the day he passed away. I thought, yeah, because I'm like, well, thanks, babe. You took the cake. I can't screw him up any more than that. Thanks.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes, you took a cake. Oh my gosh. That is like, yeah, that's that humor. I mean, that's the Mark Twain quote. And I mean, whatever Mark Twain says is that it's okay to do. So that's cool.
Well, yeah. For sure.
Oh my gosh. And you're like the perfect personality to do that too, because you're kind of the same page as me. Just, humorous, bubbly, outgoing, positive attitude, that kind of thing. So
love it. Thank you for saying that, because I think when you deal with so much crap, it's funny. I said to somebody, I was doing a class in January called Creating on Purpose, and we introduced ourselves, and I'm like, I feel like I suck the oxygen out of the room. Like people see me coming and they're like, death, dying, sucking the oxygen out of the room. And she pulled me aside afterwards and she goes, that is not my perception of you, and you need to change that story. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, and it's just funny because I think that was part of leaving work. I'm like, I need to shake it off. I need to shake it all off and get back to my roots. So it's good to hear I'm getting back there. Yeah,
I mean, that's how I see it. And we have our group that meets every Friday. I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast yet, but every Friday there's 5 of us get together, and whoever's available, usually it's at least 3 people, and we just talk about oneness, meditation, things we learned, what's going on in the world right now, and relate it back to mindfulness. It's really beautiful conversations. Like sometimes it's therapy, sometimes it's like learning something new. And yes, you weren't there on Friday, but I pegged every single personality. I'm like, this is what you bring to the table, Lisa. This is what Nicole brings to the table. And they were like, exact. I'm like, that's why we should be. And then somebody said like, oh, maybe we should be like the virtual version of The Next View or something like that. And like let everybody hear our conversations because they're so cool and weird and fun. But I almost put one of them up on the podcast. I should maybe like email my listeners or put it up and see if they really want to listen, but because it was a really good one, remember? But I decided not to.
It was I gotta say, and Justin, you're the one that makes us go so deep. So deep. There's nothing superficial about our conversations. It's wild. It's wild. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
They're soul-filling conversations.
We missed you last week.
I missed you guys.
We've been on here 40, 45 minutes and we've had a really good conversation. I've had a lot of fun. I'm going to end with a couple questions for you.
Sure.
And if you've listened to any podcast, you probably know the one that is coming. If you could go back and tell your little self, your 18-year-old self, and they would listen, that's important. They would listen. What would you say to them? What would you write to them?
Can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Calm the fuck down. Can I say that?
Yeah. Calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Don't take it all so seriously. Enjoy the ride. Truly enjoy the ride. And I think, the biggest thing is to be present. Here's another deep, quick story.
Yeah, definitely.
And this reminds me a little bit about meditation. So after I joined my fancy gym, right after Pete passed away, I was paranoid about my kid and taking care of him and not screwing him up and whatever. And I was a zombie. And so we were sitting by the pool one night. It was a gorgeous night. And it's funny how you can go from just sitting there and everything's fine to, I don't want to say panic attack, but panicky. And your heart rate starts just flying and you're like, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, what's my entire future? I have no idea what my entire future is now. And I start going down that path. And then I just thought to myself, I don't know what made me do it, but I just thought, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. My son is in a pool getting healthy activity. And if he needs food, there's food right over there. I can just order it and he'll have it in 10 minutes. We're fine. You're fine. Literally, nothing changed between this moment and 30 seconds ago. Why all of a sudden the panic? Just bring it back. Be present. When you're in the present moment, nothing is really that bad. Really.
Right.
Well.
No, you're right. One of the things that Davidji uses in his meditations is, do I agree that I cannot go into the past and change my past events? Do I agree that I cannot go into the future and force it? So what do we have? Right. We have our present. All we have is right now, like our conversation. That's all we have right now, What
right
about,
now,
you brought your son up, and I'll ask this question. If I asked your son, and if I said to your son, what's his name? Nate. That's right. Because my brother's name's Nathan too. If I asked you what, if I asked your son what he would say that he loves about his mommy, what would he say?
That's a good question. I think he would say I'm present. I hope he would say I'm present. I think, certainly after Pete, I just wanted to be present, and not just physically present, emotionally present. And I think, you know what? I think he would say, I've got your back. I've got his back.
You've got his back.
Yeah. He knows I've got his back.
And if I challenged him and said, well, I don't believe you, give me an example. What do you think he would use? Or, one example he would use.
A relative that can be kind of challenging, that, you gotta put up with some things from relatives that you don't put up with from other people, which can be challenging. And
you got his back on that before?
And I got his back on it, and he knows it. Yeah. He knows it. I've had to, I've had some hand-to-hand combat for him. Not gonna lie.
Nicole getting down. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah. But he, like, I tried to keep him from it. It's an important relative on my husband's side, right? And he was an only child. So he unfortunately doesn't have a lot of relatives over there. So I was like, all right, I'm having a hard time with this, but I don't want my hard time to get in the way of his relationship. And family's really important to me. Yeah. So I kind of took myself out and I made space for him to have that relationship. But I kept an eye on it because I wanted to make sure that the stuff that I was noticing wasn't going to happen to him. And when I started noticing it, he started noticing it. I'm like, okay, all right, I got to jump back in there. I got to jump back in. He can't, he can't be on his own on that. I can't put that on him. So it's good.
Well, now what about over the past 6 months since you've been meditating? What is one thing that you've gotten rid of in your life, and what's one thing that you've added?
Gotten rid of, you know what? I'll say it. That relationship, I think, was my biggest stress point. And I can't tell you why or how exactly, but I let that stress of that relationship go. And I honestly, I have a peace and an acceptance about it that's really, feels really good, because that's exactly what I'm dealing with, what I've been so busy about and what I've kind of feared that I'm in the middle of. So it's funny how I know that this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it was June 1st. I was doing a meditation. It was June 1st. And I'm like, it's June 1st. It's halfway through this year. This is my year. I am done stressing about this thing. And it is what it is. That's it. I'm going to stop obsessing about my every action and what my actions were and how it might have caused this or what have you, or my every word. And it's just going to be what it's going to be. And that's it. That's fine. It's fine. It's good. It's more than fine.
That is so powerful. I don't think you realize what you just shared with the audience right there. That was like amazing. Like, thank you. And I know you're like, well, was it? It was really incredible. You're talking to me. She's looking around behind. And then what's one thing you added?
Oh, added?
Yeah.
Presence. True presence.
Yeah. And you added I remember you create a space in your house too, right? Was that always there, or has that been there just past 6 months?
Well, this was here. I always worked from home for the past 10 plus years ish. And so I threw the desk out. Yeah. And it was the dumping ground room and the office. And so I literally did the Marie Kondo thing I told you, and I dumped it. I put the desk out in the hall, and I literally got rid of everything except the Stairmaster that brings me joy. And the Stairmaster's still here, but I don't even use it, and I'm joyful about that. I don't use it, but I do online classes and stuff like that. So it's my Zen den, I call it. I'm in my Zen den.
And did you create that the past 6 months, or was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. The day, November 1st, pretty much.
Okay. So November 1st. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Well, Nicole, you've been awesome. I mean, you've been great. Thank you for coming on. Are you glad that you came on?
I'm glad.
Okay. Because I know you were nervous a little bit.
I was nervous. No, you're so easy. You're the best.
Oh, you are. Thank you. Okay, I will stop this now.